if it was an exhibit yard. There are other exhibits that will go up in flames.
You know, normally the EFCC Act gives EFCC what we call a right over the property that is seized. They just need to go to court to get an order for interim forfeiture, and then at the conclusion of the matter, you now outrightly forfeit it to the EFCC once you are found guilty of the offense alleged to have been committed in that specific regard, to seize that property from you completely. And once that is done, it's irreversible. As long as, of course, it's the court that affirms that the forfeiture is permanent. So EFCC most times just goes for interim forfeiture at the beginning part of the matter, and then eventually outright forfeiture. So in that case, you have no claim to bring against EFCC anymore, if that happens.
All right, so I'm going over to Lagos on this conversation now. I got you, over to you.
I'm just, you know, most times when, like the barrister said, though he called it a conspiracy, his own conspiracy theory, we've seen where offices of the accountants in local governments and the state just get burned, and where the fire starts, where it ends, it's sometimes very funny, and people are not held responsible. Or if they are held responsible, we don't get to hear about it a few days later because maybe some interests have been met. But I'm just trying to learn something from the show today because I have a barrister in the house. Evidences that have been lost, like these ones that have been lost to this fire as it is it possible to admit an inventory that doesn't have physical items in the court of law and still have the kind of judgment you want to get? I'm just trying to learn something. Because in this case, like Niabari said, it may not only be diesel or petrol or any of those kind of things. Maybe there are other hard items that could have been tendered in the court and now they are lost to this fire. So can that case still have a headway just with the inventory that will not have physical items to be shown?
Now, in answering your question, it has to deal with the time frame. By time frame, this is what I mean. Whatever was there that was destroyed by fire, if the matter involving that item had been concluded, by concluded now I mean if the item has been tendered already as evidence, the court has taken cognizance of it and put a record in the record book of the judge over that particular item already before it is destroyed, then it has nothing to do with the judgment. But in a situation where the item is destroyed before the time when that item is supposed to be presented as evidence, it is already destroyed. That item cannot be an evidence anymore. The word evidence means proof of something that is existing, right? And you cannot present something that is not existing. Or if not, say, if I'm not using the word existing, something that is not in the form that you are presenting it to be, because those trucks are still standing, but they are destroyed. So if the truck was painted with white, the truck that has been burnt and destroyed cannot be that way anymore. So it still doesn't qualify as evidence to be presented to the court. I, as a judge, I won't take it. I won't admit it as evidence at that point. It has been mutilated. It's not in the format with which you had presented it in your pleadings for the court.
So at this point, we can only hope that the time frame was that which allowed this evidence to be tendered in court so that it can also still be used to argue the cases for or against these individuals who have cases with the EFCC.
Exactly.
Yeah, very back to you.
All right, thank you so much. And over to Shola in Abuja on the same conversation. Shola?
Yeah, Barrister Better.
Yes.
This has to do with mode of operation and processes that is involved when during and after the arrest are made. And I know, no matter what the case may be, there must be a profiling. And profiling at the entrance into that exhibit dumps will have taken shape like videos, pictures, and all this in the course of profiling the exhibit. Are you now telling me that after having this profiling, and it has even been established there was a fire outbreak at the site, are you still saying all these profiles of this exhibit are not admissible in court?
Okay, if you listen to me when I was speaking before, I had said, excuse me, that you could present pictures of those items to the court. Now, as a lawyer on the opposing side, with the knowledge that that evidence that you are presenting in picture form has been destroyed in actual fact, I can ask the court on my own with the intention to prove to the court that those things are no longer existing, right? That since they say this is the evidence they have against my client, let them provide it for the court to see, outside just showing pictures. What point am I trying to create? That these pictures may have been doctored. Do you get my point? Now, if that is my argument that the pictures were doctored, how will EFCC, who perhaps may not even want the court to know that the evidence has been destroyed, now what would they say? What would their counsel say? Okay, that he will provide it. He cannot. It has been destroyed already. You see? Okay, on the other hand, let's go further in consideration. What if judgment now falls in favor of the accused person or defendant? Judgment falls in his favor, and perhaps whatever EFCC took from him, that is that exhibit we are talking about, was taken illegally, as may have been pronounced by the court. And the court is giving an order that those items should be returned as a consequential order to the accused person, who perhaps may have been discharged and acquitted. How would the FCC refund and send those items back? Age of tendering those items in evidence. Perhaps maybe you have concluded your final addresses and you're waiting for judgment. Degree of the destruction of the evidence.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I said about before when I said about the form, that in this manner it won't be white anymore. So you're giving evidence. In your pleadings, you are stating that a white truck with this specification and this specification, and the truck itself is not in the specification that you have put in your writings. That would not qualify as the evidence that you're making reference to anymore at that point. The law on the other side,
environment, the EFCC exhibit dump site, is it not enough to put any other assertion away and consider the veracity of that offense?
The assertion you're making reference to now, is it the assertion that is expected to come from the court, or the opinion of the counsel representing EFCC, or to court now and charge the person to court? Except they are withdrawing their matter. They can withdraw at any time.
Atlantic blowout. Don't go anywhere. blow up right here on Atlantic Television Network. We've been having great conversations this morning, and if you just checked in, yes, I have Barrister Bethel right here in the studio with us, and of course Lagos and Abuja is on. On to our next conversation now. The Senate moves to re-amend the proceeds of crime, and that's Recovery and Management Bill 2022, passed by committal sponsored by the Senate leader Yahaya Abdullah. In his presentation, the senator burden of proof
or that you don't benefit from the crime you have committed.
Okay.
So you lose. If it is money you stole, you will lose the money to the government.
Okay.
I remember back then when I was doing my master's degree, in my thesis, in a paper I wrote in criminal law, I had recommended to my professor at the time that a law should be passed that dispossesses a convicted felon of any property he has acquired, either by inheritance or as a direct proceed from the crime committed that led to this. If I'm convicted for a crime of murder, why do I need to bother committing the crime of murder? On the other hand, why do I need to go and commit armed robbery when the thing that made me go and commit the armed robbery is to maybe buy a property that I bought in Lekki as a direct consequence of the action I took? Then what is the essence of going ahead to commit the armed robbery when you lose the very same thing that led you to committing the criminal act? Now, this crime bill, this amendment of this section 74 is simply to fall in line with the legal requirement that the onus of proof is on the person who alleges. For example, you are charged by the Nigerian police for armed robbery, for example, and they are now saying you should prove that you are innocent. That's not how it goes. It is the person who is charging you that will prove that you are guilty. Right?
Yeah.
So this is exactly what the senator was trying to correct, to fall in line with the African Charter that Nigeria is a signatory to, which I think is I can't remember the exact section now, but to just paraphrase, it was specifically saying that state parties that are involved in that, let me call it the treaty arrangement, are required to ensure that in order for offenders to forfeit whatever it is that they are forfeiting as a direct consequence of their criminal actions, it is the state that should be given evidence to prove their guilt and not the other way around, where they have to now be proving that they are not guilty.
Okay. All right. So prove that you okay. So this is where I'm going to go with this. In a country like ours, that we know that we rarely have records that are consistent. This bill, how efficacious is this bill? Because some people can get stuff in other people's names. They can get things and hide things, and so for whoever is trying to allege and prove, how can they get to find enough to say these things belong to this person and we can prove that it came from proceed of crime or something?
It's not such a hard thing to do for me. It's not such a hard thing to do. Why do I say so? There's one thing that cannot be doctored in Nigeria, and that thing is a bank statement. Nobody can doctor it for anyone in this country because of the way the system is built, the banking system. Every transaction you have done, even 10 years, 20 years ago, is still in the database. It can be retrieved at any point in time. So when you say, except for those who, of course, don't operate, don't do their businesses using the banks.
Yeah.
Even in that case, you could still be called to question if the need arises. Let me digress a little and talk about someone who is running for office, and then according to the Code of Conduct Bureau, you are also supposed to declare assets, right? The essence of that is so that when you are to be queried at the close of the tenure that you served in office on the other things that you have acquired after leaving office, traces can be easily found as to how these additional properties or whatever it is that you may have acquired came into limelight. In similar vein, the crime bill, which of course my own personal opinion is that, like I said about the EFCC, they already have forfeiture in their acts. Crime bill is now saying the very same thing, that you will forfeit. I think maybe this is just done so that it can have a larger effect, because it's just the EFCC Act that gave them that authority. So maybe they want to cut it across all agencies of government that is for law enforcement, right? So that, of course, they are the ones that will prosecute crimes. Except, of course, in any state, you are going to Attorney General to give you a fiat to prosecute a crime. Otherwise, it's solely in the hands of this government parastatals or establishments of government that are law enforcement. So that's what I would say about it.
Okay. All right. I got you. Over to you in this conversation.
I wouldn't have any more comments on the conversation right now.
Okay. All right. So we'll take it to Shola now. Shola, over to you.
Yeah, Barrister Better, we have to consider the reason why the National Assembly Joint Committee on Legal Matters, Human Rights and Judiciary, in their own wisdom, they understand that is United Nations Transnational Organized Crime Code that Nigeria is signatory to, that has to do with the Section 12 subsection 7, that put it other way around, not to have the burden of proof on the investigative agency, but rather on the defendant. Why have they not considered this charter before putting us this particular clause 8074? Less than a week, they are recalling it. Why is it like that?
Okay, this one is just a straightforward answer. Now, I don't want to excuse them entirely, but I want to make something clear. Every person who goes to read law from the university, they come in contact with a name, Lord Denning. You can research on his name. You see how influential he was in England over issues concerning law and judgment and all that under common law. Now, there is a famous quote that is referenced to him. He said, God forbid that any lawyer should know all the laws. Now, there are several laws in this country. So many of them, I cannot make boast of even knowing all of them. Neither can any lawyer in Nigeria make boast of knowing all of it. The same applies to the members of these committees, both Judiciary Committee and all the rest of them. Right? The same applies to them. They cannot know all. I want to believe that someone may have drawn their attention to this particular fact, that this law that you people have passed is in contravention of this charter, that being that particular section is in contravention of this charter that Nigeria is a signatory to. Therefore, that section needs to be amended. I'm sure that is what brought them to this particular situation where we are not talking about the amendment of that particular section.
If you judge by the confiscation, the zeals, and what forfeiture will be having in this country over time, is contravening this particular charter, that the onus to prove the source of proceed should be on the defendant. But we have seen Nigeria government acting in contravenance to this particular order. Where do we stand in our legal and judiciary system?
Okay. I think you just get not just a smart lawyer. Just get a lawyer that is, although contrary to the advice of most of the judges, as a lawyer, I always advised not to be emotional about the matter you're handling. But you see, there is something that comes with you being emotional about something. You give your all to it. You tend to get more results in matters that you have taken personal. So when you're defending a client and you have seen, for example, that the person is innocent, maybe you're a moralist and you have seen that this person is being oppressed. You know, the Bible says oppression makes a wise man mad. And you have seen that this person is being obviously oppressed. And then you have made up your mind as a lawyer that you must ensure that this your client gets victory. You have moved into passion for victory in that particular matter. Then you brazenly fight the government in this particular regard. That is after this time, of course, because this bill was passed. No assent has been given to it yet before they now record and say they want to amend. So it's still within the purview of the legislature. It has not become a full-fledged law operational in the country yet. So I hold the opinion that your angle of concern can be taken care of by the lawyer or set of lawyers who are handling cases for diverse clients who are victims of this situation you're complaining about.
Several injunctions over the years are over time ambushed these particular treaties. And we have seen so many confiscation that is not in line. That is my worry. And now, what formed their wisdom to have acted in contravenance to this party?
Without an order of court. Nobody just goes and takes another person's property as a law enforcement agent and then it is yours. Except, of course, the person whose property you have taken has no understanding of his legal rights. That's the only yardstick for which you can do that. If they do, you won't succeed. You must go to the court. So, since we are all going to the court, the defendant in any situation of this nature should be represented by counsel. Where he cannot afford one, the court will provide one for him or her, whether a she or a he. A counsel will be provided to defend that person's interest. So, it still boils down to that same person to ensure that the forfeiture does not go through for this reason or this reason or this reason or that reason. Mind you, in a real court situation, I am accusing you that you did a certain thing. When you're responding to the accusation, in the process of responding, I'm saying that, okay, you served as, let me say, a commissioner for housing in Rivers State. And then while you were serving as commissioner for housing, you worked in line with the Surveyor General of the state and you confiscated plot 673, I'm just assuming now, plot 673 about Macaulay Way, OGRA, Port Harcourt, to yourself. Now, when you're responding, you can respond and just say, plot 673 about Macaulay Way, OGRA, River State, was a property of Ambassador so and so that was sold to so and so, who sold to my father, who bequeathed it to me in his will. You have answered it. It's not the same thing they are saying. They don't want you to be the one to prove that you have proved your source of income of how you got the property. You have already proven it. The same very thing. So when in real court situation, you will prove it. This person is accusing you of something. You will respond.
How do you rate human rights in the face of our criminal justice system in Nigeria?
Generally, or you are narrowing it down to a particular situation?
Generally.
Human rights, if human rights are being obeyed in Nigeria, is that what you're saying?
How do you see human rights as far as our criminal justice system is concerned.
The question is vague. That's why I'm trying to understand it very well.
Let us narrow it to corruption and what have you.
Okay. Prosecution of officers who are accused of corruption, whether we are obeying their own human rights in the process of prosecuting them.
Yeah.
Okay. Of course, it's still, like I said, it still boils down to your lawyer who is representing you. Like our, what do you call him? Okay, though his case is not related to corruption, but Nnamdi Kanu now, you can go to court to talk about fundamental right enforcement procedure. You can go and file an action, either in the state high court or in the federal high court. Your lawyer will do that for you. Say, for example, a typical example is you are arrested by, not you now, someone is arrested, and then the person is detained for 7 days or 10 days or 20, in fact 2 months. The agency of government that arrested him and detained him did not go to a court to get an order permitting them to detain him on the premise that they are doing investigation, and they feel that if he's free he can destroy or hamper on the outcome of their investigation, right? So they need to keep him confined, so maybe he does not go and take care of situations in a manner that when they are investigating, there are things they will not find. They did not do that. They just detained the person. Now, you already know that the law requires that after arrests, within 24 hours, you are supposed to take the person, charge the person to court. 24 hours. That's 2 days. But when it is weekend, like a Friday, you arrest a person on a Friday, you still have 24 hours. And you have gone for how many Mondays now that will make up 2 months? 8 Mondays have passed, and you did not charge the person to court. Now, the lawyer representing that person cannot bring an action against that agency of government and against the particular IPO or head of the department that signed the detention warrant to keep that person detained on the premise of the section of the Constitution. I think that's in chapter 4, fundamental human rights in the Nigerian Constitution, from 33 to 48 of the Constitution. You find one of the sections there, shooting, if it is a restriction of movement, when there is freedom of movement guaranteed in the Constitution, his liberty was abused, his freedom of movement was abused, maybe he was beaten or battered in the process of being in detention for that period. You take the action against that agency of government and go to court. There are people who have gone and they have been awarded 10 million, 20 million as compensation for suffering from the that rascality of that agency of government to engage in such thing, knowing fully well that it's illegal. That's a human rights violation.
It's all about looking for good lawyers, and also be very careful not to run into the lawyers that will sell you out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Shola. Quick break. When we come back, of course, on to our last conversation. This is going to be a short one, but stay with us. Don't go anywhere. Work on to our last lap, and this conversation, the Nigerian government is to use $2.2 billion from Eurobond money for fuel subsidy. A lot of conversations have been going around as to whether or not the subsidy will be removed, how it will be removed, and how it will affect Nigerians. But there is also another conversation about monies borrowed, and a lot of Nigerians just cringe when we hear borrowed. This story says the Nigerian government will withdraw 2.2 billion from the Eurobond it issued last September and add to the proceeds of fresh domestic borrowing this year to fund fuel subsidy. That's the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, that said this. Okay, so raising oil prices has put us in a very precarious position because we import refined products, and it means that our subsidy cost is really increasing. And this is the concern of Ms. Ahmed. And on the subject, the question of borrowing to settle this and that. First of all, I'll just come to Barrister Bethel in the studio. Do you see us coming out of this debt crisis that we are readily going into every other day as Nigeria?
Well, I think we can come out of it. You know, I can't remember the exact figure, but Nigeria was indebted pre-1999. That debt was cancelled. But it's either we are no longer able to pay our debts or we seek for pardon for the debts to be cancelled, just like it was done for us under the President Olusegun Obasanjo's regime. But so far, the figures that have been coming out from the Ministry of Finance as to our repayment of the loans, especially the loans taken from China, I think the projection is likely going to work, if not for this challenge that we are facing now, as she complained about concerning increase in crude oil sales,
Okay.
which inadvertently affects us. It was supposed to profit us, but it affects us because we now import the finished product. Since we have decided that we don't want to have refinery no matter what.
Okay. All right, Shola, over to you on this conversation.
Either we like it or not, government will still go ahead and do whatever they want to. Do you think it's possible for us to have government removing subsidy totally?
The essence of the subsidy in the first place for petrol, the reason why they are not giving these modular refinery licenses to people, I don't understand why. Is there somebody holding Nigeria to ransom and demanding that you people must continue importing finished products into your country to use? Like Nigeria is just like a market. This market is owned by one foreign power. Nigerian government cannot benefit from the market that they are. What are we doing? How can you have your own crude? Now, assuming we had our own refineries working, in actual fact, we have the crude. Prices of crude has gone up. It's supposed to be to our advantage. We refine our products here, get all the other byproducts that comes out of it, get our diesel, get our kerosene, get our PMS, and several other byproducts that comes from it. We do whatever we want to do with them. But we sell our PMS in our country. We don't now need to be worried about the importation of these finished products. We will not need to be bothered about that, because that's our concern as to why they are now going to the Eurobonds to get out $2 billion to fund petroleum subsidy. Because, of course, the scare is that if this is not done, we could be buying 1 liter of petrol for about 400 and 500 naira.
I just want you to be so straight to point and be factual about it. And let us, as an analyst, let us be able to refer to your statement of this day, that if Nigeria eventually have refineries across the country, that will not be talking about subsidy in any ramification, and the fuel will become so cheap. That is what I am thinking. That is the question, Barrister.
Okay, sorry. Okay, let me just summarize it. The answer is simple. If we have our refineries working, the what do you call it? The material, the oil already belongs to us. The refineries are owned by Nigerians. The refineries are operational in Nigeria, inside the same Nigeria. We don't need subsidy anymore for that. We don't need subsidy anymore.
Do you try to care of what really grounded our refineries in the first place? Even when we have Kaduna refinery working optimally, you hardly find filling station in the north selling dispensing petroleum. Our petroleum are taken across of the country to Niger, to Niger, to Lake Chad, and what have you. And what becomes the country where we have refineries everywhere in the country? Can you stick out your neck for this country when it comes to money and leadership?
When it comes to what?
Money.
When it comes to money that I will be spending, or which money are we talking about now?
Money and leadership.
Can I stick out my neck? Are you asking me whether I can serve?
Well, I'm trying to let us look at the sincerity of our leaders.
We know that our leaders are not sincere now. We already know. Is there any person that is confused about that?
Can you vouch for this government? To any government coming up?
Obviously, I cannot.
Every nooks and cranny of this country, that petroleum will be so cheap.
See, I think you and I are on the same page. My reason is this. I am confounded. Like, I don't understand. Why don't you people give these local refineries what they need, modular refinery license? What is holding you from giving them? They are already producing these things. The same petroleum product you went to bring that you say you found methane in it, the ones that they produce does not have methane in it. How can you go and import something that has methane that's destroying our cars? And the ones they are illegally producing are good enough, our cars are not destroying it, as they call it, condescent. So what is holding you? And the cost that we get.
Have you ever bought from the modular refinery?
Sorry?
Have you gotten fuel from them?
Shola,
I don't have a filling station. So how do you expect me to personally now have access to petroleum product from a modular refinery?
Shola, all right.
Thank you, brother. It's good to have you on this program today.
Thank you so much, Shola. Thank you so much, Shola. We all, there's this picture that started being painted about Rivers people. You think it's kind of beginning to look like we all know where we can just take a jerry can, find one bunkering place and get some fuel or stuff. Please don't do that, Shola, please. All right, I got you. Over to you. We just have 2 minutes.
No, Barry, sir, I'll just like for us to talk to Nigerians. 2023 is coming. We've been finding difficulty even surviving in this country, but there seems to still be hope. I'd just like you to talk to Nigerians as 2023 approaches, what you think Nigerians should do and what hope you think Nigeria has beyond 2023.
Nigeria has hope. I agree. I believe in Nigeria. I believe the things can be done properly. I run a system of my own. I have rules that I set that run it, and it's running seamlessly. So why can't Nigeria run seamlessly? It can happen. And I'm running my system here in Nigeria. So why can't the country itself, hosting me and my own system, not able to now work? It can work. Now, concerning 2023, Nigeria should just go and get their PVC. The Electoral Act has been signed. Direct transmission of results would be the situation for the election. I don't want to talk about whether figures are going to be intercepted while going to the transmission room. I don't want to talk about that. I know INEC is doing something to ensure that doesn't happen, right? So let them just go and get their PVCs and be ready to vote. Their votes are going to count in 2023. They should just take that one to the bank. It will count, even though not in the 36 states of the nation, but in the majority, it will count. They should just go and get their PVCs ready and be prepared to come out and vote. Not anything voter party should be jettisoned in 2023 election. They should come out and vote, not to just have PVCs and go to your house and sit down, or not have at all. Everybody should go and get their PVC. INEC is still issuing PVCs. The registration process is still on. They should go and register and get their PVC and vote. That's the only way. And then you look at the candidates. Don't just allow people come and give you 1 naira, 2 naira and expect you to just vote. No. X-ray the candidates that they are selling to you. Ask very, very delicate questions about the people. Ask their temperament, ask their qualification educationally, because it plays a lot of role in how this person will function as a president, as a governor, as an assembly member, as a senator, House of Rep member. The educational qualification will play a part. Ask delicate questions that they must answer you, not rhetorical questions. Ask very, 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 very fundamental questions about them. And then make up your mind as to who you vote, who you think can do the right. And eventually they are where they are today. So we are just 60 something years old. We'll get it right before we get to 80 completely, I believe.
Thank you very much, Barrister.
Thank you.
That'll be all from here.
Thank you so much, Barrister Bethel, for coming in. It's been a pleasure. This is where we get to dock on Atlantic Blowout today. But remember, just stay through with us the whole day, because we have great stuff lined up for you right here on Atlantic Television Network. And tomorrow, just a few minutes past, just 7 a.m., ATN Blowout will come your way. I am Niabari Fakai, and you can follow us on all our social media handles. Facebook and YouTube is at Atlantic Television Network. Instagram is at Atlantic TV.